Welcome to the Sleeping Barber Podcast.
Coming in for the post-pod.
Hey-oo.
Post-pod.
Hey-oo.
Omar Roubi's post-pod. Did I do that right?
Yes.
I don't know if I did that right.
Yeah, Omar
I did
Roubi.
that
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Hey, what do you mean you didn't like that? Was perfect.
No,
I
I
love
meant my jingle
way.
coming in.
Oh.
What's that?
Oh, the jingle was really good.
The jingle.
I was
Jingle
trying to
was
do
good.
like a little. Yeah, I felt it. You're on fire today.
Oh man, listen, I'm fired up. I have some great budget conversations today, so trust me,
Oh.
I'm fired up.
Well, perfect timing. Now that we've had
It
this
is
conversation with Omar.
Yeah, totally.
What'd you think?
Man, it reminded me a lot of our conversation with Dave Bunce. And, sometimes we maybe collectively will try to complicate things more than we should. But, when I think about it at the end of the day, what are we trying to do? We're just trying to talk to another part of the business, trying to gain a better understanding, showcase what our impact can do to overall business health. And the best way we can do that, it's going to be different for every organization, every marketing team, but like root yourself in some of those data elements that can help tell that and craft that story. But I think Omar did an incredible job articulating as well some of the misconceptions that exist. And, he said that accountants and finance individuals don't realize how much data is actually at the fingertips of a lot of marketers. So I think just constantly having the conversation will go a long way. It'll take time, but I don't know. What did you think?
It totally makes I totally agree with your point. Even so far as how advertising works, I think it's important for us to really understand. It makes me think of that conversation we had with Cone Pals, and we've talked about it with Tom Roach, and there's tons of stuff. Even Les Bennett's got this great video on YouTube about how advertising really works. Same thing with all the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. If our stance is that advertising is a turn it on, generate invest cash, you're going to get it. It's a Plinko machine. At the bottom of that, there's a dollars that come out. If you think of it that way, and you believe it's a strong force, and that it has an instant return, an instant measurable return, then you're going into these budgeting conversations probably armed with incorrect information and unrealistic expectations, which then sets you up for failure. You know what I mean? So I think it's important for us to even have an understanding of and be able to explain how advertising actually works. Because having an understanding of market dynamics, not everybody's buying now and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff is really good base information to have valuable, intelligent conversations and accountable conversations with accounting and finance.
Yeah. I loved, there towards the end, we talked about, some of the three tips that he would have had, for marketers. And the first thing he said off the bat was read annual reports. If you want to understand what's important to the business, read your own annual report. Yeah. How many employees actually read their own company's annual report?
Right.
And I'll be honest, very few. And if it hadn't been for taking the MBA, and getting a little bit more comfortable and navigating an annual report, understanding some of the numbers, I probably still would have been that person that be like, no, let's let finance deal with that. I'm not dealing with that. But it's a huge window into an org.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
So, I mean,
even for competitor analysis, there's so much you can understand about how other companies operate. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it's again, a really good point.
How comfortable are marketers looking at an annual report? Read the letter to the shareholders.
Yeah, other than maybe designing it.
That's such a good point.
Hence
We're
the
involved. Put the logo in the top left.
Yeah.
Anyways,
No, it's a really good. It's a really good starting point. Yeah, and then as simple as just going across the hall and shaking hands with somebody that works in accounting and finance and asking them questions. It's just that bridge building stuff it makes tons of sense. Because then you're not in a position where, like, Q4, you're asking for a budget. It's not the first time you're meeting somebody. You know what I mean? They have familiarity with you. They have an understanding what you're trying to do. We have an understanding what they're trying to do. And so that kind of relationship building between the two departments is really valuable over time, not just in a moment of time when I'm asking for money. Because then it's like sales. And I'm just like, I'm a lineup.
Totally.
I'm a person in the lineup asking for cash.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually it goes back to another point that Omar made, is marketers probably are more aligned to finance professionals than they are to accounting professionals.
Right.
So again, depending on the organization, how big and how small the org is, look to align yourself to, those that think about the future of the organization more, which is those on the finance side, right? Naturally. Yeah. And the reality is they're the ones that release the funds to all these different budget line items. So like A&P or, other budgets or other expenditures. So again, it goes back to, what is your comfort level? And I think naturally as marketers, we're more intimidated by finance because of their proximity to business and the overall health of the business, because they live and breathe those functions day in and day out. Whereas we operate in this kind of isolated state, using our own KPIs. And I think, again, it goes back to, is it finance has to have closer to marketing, or marketing have to go? I think marketing has to come first closer to finance to bring finance closer to marketing. It's not going to happen the other way around.
No. Yeah, I agree. The other thing that I was thinking about was just now, one like that Target case study is so insanely good. Like it's crazy good. And it was one of the first times that I really internalized the idea of winning as a team sport, because when you hear that case study, like often you hear marketing people go, taking the blame or accepting the blame that we didn't deliver a return. Like they go, what happened? We put in the market, we put additional stimulus into the market, we put X number of dollars in, where's the return? When you hear that case study, you go, there was no product in the shelves? No wonder we didn't. No wonder we didn't. But you almost need that extreme example to really, for me, I needed to hear that to understand how critical it was. And even things like the ERP system was in for Target. It was because it was coming from the States. All the measurements were in Imperial.
Yeah.
They get to Canada and they go, with the paper towel rolls that we ordered were in Imperial measurements, and they used that number, but in metric. And so then all these paper towels show up and they don't fit on the shelves. And you're like, like that's where some of these systems and processes, like it's all of that has to work together in order to be able to deliver that promise to the customer, stuff that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
And it's not just a marketing function. It's also a whole team thing in order to win.
That reminds me, we should probably almost do an episode on Target and kind of cover everything. Yeah. Because I think it's such an incredible case study that is not something we can just cover in a small 5-minute segment. Yeah. I think there's so much there that not only marketers can pull out, but also, strategic business thinkers as well, because you're right. Like a lot of the things that you felt that would have been, or maybe how the organization approached it, and none of us were in those rooms. It's like, it's same. What we have in our ERP already, this should be fine, right? Yeah. And negating the nuances that exist for such a small country in terms of population, all the different, we talked about language, we talked about just the sheer size of the country, the logistics behind that, the moving of freight and goods and service. Like it's just, it's not the same. It's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a good one. We should definitely do that. It could be a whole Barber's Brief, just a case study on, or an episode, entirely on its own.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about the conversation with Omar?
Just going back to my notes here. I think I've covered pretty much anything. Like he articulated, stay educated, keep listen to podcasts, and we definitely would recommend listening to LumiQ's podcast as well. Like it's a great resource for you to kind of broaden your understanding on all things, accounting, if you will, and there's some finance sprinkled in there as well, which is good. But I think as marketers, that's what we owe ourselves. Is our space evolves. We should also be investing as much time as possible, getting more information on how the business operates, so then we can storytell internally better than we do today.
Yeah.
And it comes back to wanting to do that, because again, it's very easy for us in our day-to-day to be like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Well, you'll regret those very words the moment you go to finance to ask for money. If you haven't spent time nurturing or, identifying those things that they need to know or hear from you to either feel confident to give you money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The last thought I had was just around that idea of brand and being intangible. And an intangible thing isn't measured by accounting because it's too subjective.
Yeah.
So, I like the idea of, obviously it's important. Obviously it has impact on profit, which isn't always the same thing that's driving people's decision making, because it could often be revenue, not profit. Yeah. Even though you and I chase profitability all the time, not everybody
all
else
the time.
Does. Yeah, not everybody else does. So, but if you understand, like thinking back to the annual report conversation, if you understand the language and what the is important to the company, then that might help position the brand part better, because it's by saying brand, it's going to be an intangible asset, and instantly people are going to lump that in an intangible asset, which they don't measure. So it has no value.
Great point.
Until it's proven that it has some kind of value, in which case it's the company
sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it was interesting. Yeah.
So smart.
No, just I have lots of questions.
This is great, man. This is great.
Yeah, this is a good conversation. I'm really grateful we had him on.
Yeah, Omar, if you're still listening, thank you for your time today. We genuinely appreciate it. And thanks for, sharing your insights.
Yeah. And then, like I said, I've got an appointment with Profit. So I'm going to probably have to jump here in a second, but
you actually got a meeting with them? I can't get a meeting with them. What did you do?
They're really hard to get a hold of. But
I know.
But I swung one for 9 a.m. So I just got to go prep for that Profit session.
That profit. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, keep chasing that profitability, my friend. You got this.
Okay, buddy.
All right. Have a great rest of your day. All right.